The text came at 11:47 p.m. A single vibration on a phone that received nothing except encrypted orders and underground intel, but this one was different. It was from an unknown number, a child's number. Please help us. They're taking the children tonight. Director Park stared at the screen. He narrowed his eyes, thinking it was a leak, a setup, a wrong number. Then another text arrived, shorter, more frantic. I think they have my brother. Mom's phone is dead. Please. Park's breathing stopped. He had orchestrated disappearances. He had profited from fear, but he had never seen this. A child reaching out to a stranger because she had no one else left. He typed only 3 words. Where are you, Aaliyah? No calculation, no risk assessment, no protocol. His second-in-command looked up from the reports. Director, the Chong meeting. He didn't answer. He didn't need to because something in that child's words, that raw terror, awakened a part of him he thought had been buried 28 years ago. As his sedan cut through the city streets, another message appeared. They're in the hallway now. I hear them breaking locks. Park's jaw tightened. His pulse, usually controlled, measured, hammered against his ribs. Streetlights blurred past like falling stars. By the time he traced the signal to Riverside Apartments, Building 7, he already knew. Tonight, he wasn't arriving as the director who controlled the shadows. He was arriving as the only lifeline that little girl had left. And what he discovered in that apartment complex would shatter everything he thought he knew about his empire. Stay with me until the end because what Director Park uncovered in that warehouse will stop your heart and change his life forever. Before we begin, pause for a second and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you enjoy emotional, powerful stories like this, subscribe now, because tomorrow's story might be the one that stays with you long after the video ends. Let's get into it. The morning began the way it always did, with absolute control. Director Park arrived at his office at exactly 6:47 a.m., 3 minutes before the first rays of sunlight touched the waterfront district he owned on paper through a web of shell corporations. His assistant had already prepared the espresso, double shot, no sugar, precisely 168 degrees. The financial reports sat aligned on his desk, edges parallel to the mahogany grain. Everything in its place. Everything measured. Everything controlled. For 15 years, Park had built his empire on a principle that never failed him: control the infrastructure, control the game. He didn't deal drugs. He owned the warehouses where they were stored. He didn't run gambling rings. He provided the encrypted communication systems they used. He didn't traffic people, or so he told himself. He simply coordinated logistics, managed supply chains, facilitated transportation. The distance was intentional. The distance was survival. The distance let him sleep at night. By 8:30 a.m., his office transformed into something that resembled a Fortune 500 boardroom. Men in tailored suits filled the leather chairs around his conference table, tablets glowing, coffee steaming in porcelain cups. To any outsider, this was a legitimate consulting firm discussing quarterly projections. But the words between the words told a different story. The shipment from Vancouver meant guns. Client acquisition in the East District meant territory expansion. Operational efficiency improvements meant eliminating competition. Chong, his second-in-command for the past 8 years, delivered his report with the precision of a corporate VP. Everything's running smoothly, Director. The Riverside operation is ahead of schedule. The new routes through the industrial district are proving efficient. No complications, no heat, no problems. Park nodded, his face betraying nothing. He had perfected the art of the expressionless mask, the slight nod that could mean approval or dismissal or nothing at all. His reputation had been built on this. The man who never flinched, never wavered, never let emotion cloud judgment. They called him the director, not just because he directed operations, but because he orchestrated them with the detached precision of someone directing a play where he never stepped on stage. But when the office emptied at 11:15 a.m., when the last footstep faded down the hallway, Park did what he did every single day. He unlocked the bottom drawer of his desk, the one no one else had keys to, the one that held files that had nothing to do with shipments or territories or profit margins. Inside, manila folders organized by year, by region, by age. Missing children reports from 1996. Newspaper clippings yellowed at the edges. Police documents obtained through channels he'd rather not examine too closely. His hand always went to the same file. Park Min-jun. Age 7. Last seen Seoul, South Korea. Disappeared November 14, 1996. The school photo paperclip to the report showed a boy with his same dark eyes, same serious expression, frozen forever at 7 years old while Park had aged into someone Min-jun wouldn't recognize. His assistant's voice came through the intercom, respectful, Careful. Still searching, sir? Park closed the drawer, turned the key, slipped it back into his pocket where it lived against his chest like a second heartbeat. His reflection in the window showed a man in complete control, a king surveying his kingdom, a director watching his perfectly orchestrated empire. Always, he said. He never added the rest, that he'd built this empire searching for answers, that every connection he made was a thread he hoped would lead back to that November day, that the distance he maintained from the worst of his operations was the only thing keeping him from admitting what he was really afraid of, that somewhere in the machine he'd built, he might find the truth about what happened to his brother. And that truth might destroy him. Aaliyah Peterson had learned to be smart about danger. 9 years of living in Riverside apartments taught you things: which hallways to avoid after dark, which neighbors to trust, how to recognize trouble before it reached your door. But this was different. This was trouble that came in vans with tinted windows and men who moved with purpose, not chaos. She sat on her bedroom floor, back against the wall beneath her window, one arm wrapped around Marcus, who was trying very hard not to cry. Her little brother's Spider-Man pajamas were still damp from his bath, his hair smelling like the coconut shampoo Mama always used. He was supposed to be asleep by now. Mama was working a double shift at the hospital, wouldn't be home until 7 a.m. Aaliyah had promised to take care of everything. She always did. Through the thin curtains, she watched the parking lot transform into something from a movie she wasn't old enough to watch. 3 white vans, no markings, parked in a triangle formation. 6 men, maybe more, wearing dark clothes that looked expensive, not like the usual trouble that came through Riverside. They moved like they'd done this before. Like they had a plan. She tried texting Mama first. Mom, something's wrong. Men are taking kids from the building. But the message wouldn't send, no signal, or maybe Mama's phone was off during her shift. Panic made her fingers clumsy. She tried again, 1 digit different, not even realizing her mistake until the response came back. Where are you, Aaliyah? A stranger. She'd texted a stranger. But the stranger knew her name, and something about those 3 words, clinical, direct, like someone used to emergencies, made her keep typing. Riverside Apartments, Building 7. They're taking children. Please help us. The response was immediate. Stay hidden. Don't make noise. I'm tracking your location. How? I'm very good at finding people, Aaliyah. Keep texting me. What do you see? She lifted the edge of her curtain with 1 finger. Marcus buried his face in her shoulder. 3 vans, she typed, her burgundy school uniform sleeve. She'd fallen asleep before changing, catching on the phone case. At least 6 men. Maybe more. They're going door to door. I think they're taking kids whose parents aren't home. Describe them. The men. What do they look like? Professional, she typed, using a word Mrs. Chun taught her in vocabulary class. Like businessmen but scary. They have clipboards. They're checking apartments like they know which ones to go to. In his office across the city, Park's blood turned to ice water. Clipboards meant lists. Lists meant planning. Planning meant organization. This wasn't opportunistic crime. This was an operation. A professional trafficking operation. In his territory. On his waterfront. In a building his organization owned through proxies. What floor are you on? 3rd. They're on the 2nd now. I can hear them. And she could. Footsteps in the stairwell. Voices speaking low. The sound of doors being tested, some opening easily, some requiring force. Mrs. Johnson's door. She worked nights at the factory. The Rodriguez twins. Their dad drove trucks cross-country. The Patterson baby. His mama cleaned offices downtown. They're in the hallway now, Aaliyah typed, her hands shaking so hard she had to retype twice. Marcus whimpered against her neck. She covered his mouth gently, the way Mama did when they had to be quiet during Daddy's funeral. Don't move. Don't breathe. I'm coming, Aaliyah. Stay exactly where you are. She heard a doorknob rattle 3 apartments down. Then 2 apartments down. Then the apartment next door. Mrs. Chen's grandson stayed there on weekends. Marcus looked up at her with eyes too young to understand but old enough to be terrified. It's okay, Aaliyah whispered, lying the way 9-year-olds learn to lie when they're trying to be brave. Help is coming. She just hoped the stranger on the phone was telling the truth. The apartment smelled like instant ramen and the electric hum of their Sega Genesis. Ji-woo guided Sonic through Green Hill Zone while Min-jun bounced beside him, 7 years old and unable to sit still, shouting directions that made no sense. Their mother wouldn't be home until midnight, another double shift at the restaurant. Ji-woo had promised to watch his brother, heat up dinner, make sure homework got done. Normal Thursday evening, 1996. The doorbell broke Sonic's rhythm. Ji-woo paused the game. Stay here, he told Min-jun, who was already reaching for the controller. 3 men stood in the hallway. Professional. Ties and dark jackets. Speaking formal Korean that made Ji-woo straighten instinctively. Is your mother home? No. Something felt wrong. Ji-woo kept his hand on the door edge. When will she return? I don't know. The truth, but also a shield. They exchanged looks, a language Ji-woo couldn't read yet but would spend years learning. The closest man moved faster than seemed possible. Past Ji-woo. Into the apartment. Min-jun's controller clattered to the floor. Ji-woo fought. 12 years old, maybe 90 pounds, all elbows and desperation. He landed one good kick before someone's hand covered his face, pushed him backward into the wall. His vision sparked. When it cleared, they were at the door with Min-jun between them, his brother's sneakers dragging across the threshold, his screams echoing down the stairwell. Ji-woo ran to the Kim's apartment. Mrs. Kim looked through the peephole, saw his bloody nose, and didn't open the door. The Parks weren't home. The Lees pretended not to hear. He ran outside, screaming for help in a neighborhood that had learned not to see certain things. The police came. Took statements. Used words like process and investigation that meant nothing, changed nothing. His mother arrived at 2 a.m. and made a sound Ji-woo had never heard a human make before. Something between a howl and a prayer. The apartment became a waiting room. Days, then weeks, then months of waiting. They left for America 6 months later. New names, new language, new silence about what happened to Min-jun. The subject lived in the empty space at their dinner table, in his mother's faraway stares, in the way she sometimes called Ji-woo by his brother's name. Teen Ji-woo couldn't stop asking the question no one would answer: how do children just disappear? He taught himself to find the invisible networks, to understand the economics of human trafficking, to infiltrate the edges of criminal organizations. Gathering intelligence, he told himself. Building a map of the machine that had taken his brother. Somewhere between 18 and 25, gathering information became participating. Participating became facilitating. He told himself he was still searching, still investigating. The truth he avoided lived in the mirror. He'd become part of the machine. Another professional man in a dark jacket, speaking the language of transactions. Min-jun would be 36 now. If he was still alive. If that word even meant anything anymore. Park left his office through the private exit, his driver already pulling the car around. Riverside Apartments, Building 7. Sir. The driver checked his tablet. Your meeting tonight is at the harbor warehouse. Change of plans. Park slid into the back seat, phone already vibrating with another message. They're checking rooms now. I hear them breaking locks. His fingers moved quickly. Where exactly are you hiding? Under my bed. Marcus is in the closet. He's scared. Keep him quiet. I'm 12 minutes away. Park scrolled through his contacts, making calls as the car merged into traffic. Chin in Chinatown knew nothing. Dimitri on the waterfront hadn't heard anything. Even Maria, who ran information like currency, came up empty. Someone was operating in his territory without permission, either a new player stupid enough to challenge him, or someone smart enough to exploit his blind spots. His phone lit up. They're in my room. Park's knuckles went white around the device. He typed with forced calm. Don't move. Don't breathe. Trust me, Aaliyah. 10 minutes. The car wove through evening traffic, his driver sensing the urgency without being told. Park kept his breathing steady, his face composed, even as his mind calculated distances, response times, complications. Through his phone speaker, he'd called her, kept the line open, came muffled sounds. Men's voices speaking rapid Spanish. Furniture scraping. Footsteps heavy with purpose. The closet door opening. Marcus's muffled cry, quickly cut off. They found him. Park closed his eyes for 1 second. Opened them. Where are they taking him? Down the back stairs. To the vans. I'm following. His composure cracked. Aaliyah, N.O. I can't lose him too. Our dad died last year. Marcus is all I have. Park leaned forward. Faster. To his phone. Aaliyah, listen to me very carefully. Do not let them see you. Stay in the stairwell. Tell me what you see. 7 minutes. His other phone was already dialing Quan, his head of security. Riverside Apartments, Building 7, back entrance. I need eyes and bodies. Now. How many? Everyone you can get there in 6 minutes. Through the main line, Aaliyah's breathing came fast and scared. There's 3 vans. White. No windows. They're putting kids inside, Marcus and maybe 5 others. They're closing the doors. License plates. I can't see from here. They're moving. The vans are leaving. Park's mind raced through scenarios, probabilities, consequences. 12-year-old girl. 15-year-old brother. Father dead. No one else. The same age gap as him and Minjun. The same desperation. Aaliyah. His voice carried a weight that made his driver glance in the rearview mirror. Can you follow without being seen? I think so. There's a gap in the fence. I can cut through to the next block, see which way they turn. Do it. Stay on the phone. Tell me everything. The car turned onto Riverside. 4 minutes. Park could see Building 7 ahead, its back entrance visible from the street. No vans. No movement. Aaliyah. I'm through the fence. I see them. They're turning left on Morrison, heading toward the industrial district. Where bodies disappear. Where trails go cold. Keep following. I'm almost there. Park's car pulled up to Building 7 as the first police cruiser arrived. Parents were streaming back from work, running up stairwells, emerging moments later with faces that had aged years in seconds. A mother collapsed on the front steps. A father was screaming into his phone in Tagalog. The chaos had its own rhythm, panic spreading door to door, window to window, the realization multiplying. The vans were gone. Park stood outside his car, watching the scene with the detachment of someone who'd seen this before. 15 children from a single location. Too many to move individually, too many to keep in one place long. Standard protocol, consolidation point before distribution. Gather, sort, separate. The machine had steps. He texted Aaliyah. Are you still following? The response came after 30 seconds that felt longer. Asterisk yes. I'm in someone's car trunk. I saw which van they put Marcus in. I climbed in another one. Park's breath stopped. He read the message twice, making sure he understood. This 12-year-old girl had hidden in a trafficker's van. Had climbed into a vehicle that could take her anywhere, to anyone. The kind of desperation that overrode every survival instinct. His fingers shook slightly as he typed. Aaliyah, that's incredibly dangerous and incredibly brave. Stay completely still. Keep your phone on silent. I'm tracking you. He pulled up the location app, watching her dot move through the city. His driver was already opening the door. Follow that signal. The dot traveled east, toward the industrial district. The waterfront. Park's mind cataloged the territory, shipping warehouses, processing facilities, storage units. His territory. Businesses he owned, operations he controlled, routes he'd established over 15 years of careful expansion. The signal stopped. Park zoomed in on the location. Warehouse 14C. Maritime storage facility. 3 levels, minimal windows, direct water access. A building his organization had purchased 8 months ago through a shell company. A building he'd personally approved for special operations. The realization moved through him like ice water. This wasn't a new player. This wasn't someone exploiting his blind spots. This was internal. Stop here. Park's voice was quiet. They were still 2 blocks away, but close enough. He texted Quan again, Warehouse 14C. Our facility. Lock it down but don't approach. I need to know who authorized operations there tonight. Quan's response came quickly, checking now. That facility is listed as inactive. Then who's using it? Park stared at Aaliyah's dot on his screen, stationary inside a building he owned, part of a machine he'd built. 15 children. Maybe more. His waterfront, his territory, his empire. His phone buzzed. Aaliyah. We stopped. They're opening the vans. I need to get out before they unload. Wait. How many people do you see? 4, maybe 5. They're speaking Spanish and something else. Russian? Spanish and Russian. Not his people. Not directly. But in his building. Stay hidden. I'm coming in. Park checked his weapon, made sure it was loaded. His driver was already opening the arsenal case in the trunk. This wasn't a rescue operation anymore. This was an extraction from his own organization. Park's access code worked on the side entrance. The lock clicked green, and the door opened into darkness that smelled like diesel and fear. He moved through the warehouse with the efficiency of someone who designed the space, knew where the cameras were, where the blind spots fell, how sound carried through the concrete chambers. The main floor hummed with organized chaos. Fluorescent lights. Folding tables. Children sitting in plastic chairs while adults moved between them with clipboards and cameras. A medical station in the corner. Blood pressure cuffs, tongue depressors, the sterile efficiency of livestock processing. 15 kids from tonight, but the setup suggested previous operations. How many? How long? Park kept to the shadows, counting personnel. 8 people. Professional. Efficient. Speaking Spanish and Russian in the shorthand of people who'd worked together before. None of them his direct reports. All of them in his building. He found the vans first, parked in the loading bay. 3 vehicles, doors still open. The first 2 were empty. The third. He opened the trunk carefully. Aaliyah lay curled in the dark, phone clutched against her chest, silent tears tracking down her face. Her eyes met his and went wide. Asian man. Expensive suit. The wrong kind of person to find you in a trafficker's trunk. I've got you, Park said quietly, extending his hand. She didn't move. Are you the police? The question landed like a physical blow. Park looked at this child, brave enough to climb into a van, desperate enough to risk everything, smart enough to know the difference between rescue and something else. No. He kept his hand extended. I'm someone who should have been. Aaliyah took his hand. She was shaking, adrenaline crash mixing with terror and exhaustion. Park lifted her out of the trunk, kept himself between her and the lights of the main floor. Can you walk? She nodded. He guided her back through the shadows, retracing his path to the side entrance. His car was waiting where he'd left it, driver alert in the front seat. Lock the doors, Park told Aaliyah, opening the back door. Stay down. Don't open this for anyone but me. She climbed inside but grabbed his hand before he could close the door. Her fingers were small and cold around his. You're going back for Marcus? Yes. Promise. The word cut through 15 years of carefully constructed distance. Promise. The thing his 12-year-old self had screamed at police officers who wrote reports and made calls and did everything except bring Minjun home. The thing no one could give him because promises required power, and power required choices, and some machines were too big to stop. But this machine was his. This warehouse was his. These codes, these blind spots, these shadows, all his. Park looked at Aaliyah's face, desperate and hopeful and terrified in equal measure. I promise. She released his hand. He closed the door, heard the locks engage. Then he turned back toward the warehouse, toward 15 children and 8 personnel and the infrastructure of his own creation. Marcus was inside. And Park had made a promise. Park moved through the warehouse with purpose now, no longer hiding. The operation manager stood near the processing tables, reviewing paperwork. Park recognized him before he turned around. Chong. His lieutenant for 7 years. His right hand. The man who'd mentored him through the organization's hierarchy. Chong looked up, and something flickered across his face. Surprise, then calculation, then resignation. Director Park. He set down his clipboard. You weren't supposed to see this. Park stopped 10 feet away. His voice came out steady despite the vertigo spinning through him. How long, Chong? Since the beginning. Chang's tone was almost gentle, like he was explaining something obvious to a child. How did you think you rose so fast? Your obsession with finding your brother made you perfect. You understood the operations intimately, you improved our logistics, you never asked questions about the special shipments. We built this empire on your blind spot. The warehouse tilted. Every deal Park had coordinated. Every route he'd optimized. Every piece of infrastructure he designed for maximum efficiency. The consolidation points, the transportation networks, the shell companies that obscured paper trails. Children. Always children. Where is my brother? Chong actually laughed, a short, bitter sound. You want the truth? Your brother's probably one of 1,000. If he survived the first year, he's likely an adult now somewhere, with no memory of who he was. Seoul, Dubai, Amsterdam, we moved so many through so many places. He stepped closer. You've spent 28 years becoming the system that destroyed you. Poetic, isn't it? Park's rage didn't explode. It crystallized, surgical, controlled, devastating. He moved before Chong could signal his guards. 3 strikes, throat, solar plexus, knee. Chong dropped, gasping. The guards responded. Park was faster. Years of training, of surviving in rooms where weakness meant death. He took down the first one with a gun he didn't fire. The sound would terrify the children. The second went down with a blow to the temple. The third reached for his weapon. Park broke his wrist, then his jaw. 4 more came running. Park moved through them like water through cracks, finding weaknesses, exploiting angles, using their numbers against them. A man's own momentum became his downfall. Another's reach became his vulnerability. 30 seconds. 7 guards down. Park pulled out his phone, sent a mass text to his network, *warehouse 14C. I'm burning it all down. Anyone loyal to me, get these children out safely. Anyone loyal to Chong, you're complicit. Choose now. Chong was still on the ground, coughing blood. You can't, the organization. The organization ends tonight. Park crouched beside him. Every operation. Every route. Every contact. I built it, I can destroy it. His phone lit up with responses. Quan, on my way with transport. Medical teams standing by. Maria, contacting family services. I know people who actually help. 3 others, coordinates received. Incoming. 2 responses came through different. Chong pays better. You're making a mistake. Park forwarded those numbers to a contact in the FBI. Then he turned to the children, 15 faces watching him with various stages of terror and confusion. Marcus sat in the front row, eyes searching past Park toward the door where his sister had vanished. Park had made a promise. Time to keep it. Park moved through the warehouse, disconnecting zip ties, speaking quietly to each child. You're safe. Help is coming. Stay together. 15 faces, 15 names he made himself learn. Marcus was last, and when Park freed his hands, the boy bolted for the door before Park could explain. Your sister's outside. She's safe. She's waiting for you. Marcus stopped, turned back. Aaliyah. In my car. She never stopped looking for you. The boy ran. Park let him go, turned back to the others. His phone was already sending encrypted files to 3 different federal contacts. Agents he'd avoided for years, people whose investigations he'd carefully sidestepped. Now he gave them everything. Bank accounts. Shell companies. Transportation routes. Names, dates, transactions. The complete infrastructure of an empire built on invisible children. Chong watched from the floor, hands zip-tied behind his back. You're destroying everything. Park didn't look at him. I'm destroying nothing. There was never anything here worth keeping. Quan arrived first with 2 vans, legitimate ones, with medical personnel and trauma counselors. Then Maria with her contacts from family services. The children were moved carefully, gently, with warm blankets and soft voices. Park watched the evacuation from the shadows, making sure each child was accounted for. Sirens approached. Park had sent specific coordinates to specific precincts, the ones without officers on his payroll. Clean cops for a dirty situation. The woman who burst through the door moved like a hurricane. Keisha Williams, according to the background check Park had run in the car. Single mother, nurse at County General, worked double shifts to keep her kids fed. She saw Marcus first, swept him into her arms with a sound that was half sob, half prayer. Then she saw Aaliyah by Park's car, and the sob became a scream of relief. Park stood apart, watching the reunion. Mother and children, holding each other like the world might try to separate them again. Keisha's hands kept touching their faces, their hair, reassuring herself they were real. Finally, she looked up. Saw Park standing in his expensive suit beside a warehouse full of federal agents and freed children. Who are you? Park had rehearsed many answers on the drive over. The truth came out instead. Someone who was looking for his brother in all the wrong places. Keisha's eyes searched his face. She was a nurse, trained to read people to see past surfaces. Whatever she saw made her eyes fill with tears. Thank you. She walked toward him, still holding Marcus and Aaliyah. Thank you for bringing my babies home. The gratitude felt like a knife. Park shook his head. I'm the reason they were taken. This operation, this building, the logistics that made it possible, I built the roads they drove on. Keisha stopped. Processed that. Looked at her children, then back at Park. But you also tore those roads up. Her voice was steady despite the tears. You could have walked away. You didn't. A federal agent was approaching, Detective Sarah Chun, one of the clean contacts. Park had maybe 5 minutes before questions became arrests. Your children are brave, he told Keisha. Especially Aaliyah. She saved her brother's life tonight. No, Aaliyah said quietly. You did. Park met her eyes. This 12-year-old girl who'd climbed into a trafficker's van, who'd trusted a stranger in an expensive suit, who'd watched him make a promise and keep it. We both did, he said. Then he turned to face Detective Chun, hands visible, ready for whatever came next. The juvenile detention center smelled like industrial cleaner and institutional food. Park had negotiated his plea carefully, full testimony in exchange for protective custody and a reduced sentence. 6 years if he cooperated completely. The federal prosecutors had been skeptical until they saw the depth of his evidence. 3 trafficking networks dismantled in the first month. 17 more arrests pending. Numbers that meant something now. Tuesday afternoons, Park ran workshops for at-risk youth. Kids the system had flagged, runaways, truants, the ones hovering at the edges where recruiters circled like sharks. This is how the system works, he told them, standing in a room with barred windows and plastic chairs. This is how they recruit. They find your vulnerability, poverty, loneliness, family problems, and they offer solutions. A job. A place to stay. Someone who understands. He paused. This is how I became what I hated. The kids listened. Some skeptical, some bored, some leaning forward with recognition in their eyes. Visiting hours on Thursdays. Keisha brought Aaliyah every other week, sometimes with Marcus. The boy was in therapy, still jumping at unexpected sounds, but recovering. He'd started drawing, whole notebooks filled with superheroes and impossible escapes. Aaliyah came through the security checkpoint with her backpack and her mother's steady presence. She'd grown 2 inches, lost the haunted look she'd carried that first month. Got my math test back. She pulled out a paper, smoothed it on the table between them. Read 98% at the top, her teacher's note, exceptional work. Proud of you, Aaliyah. She studied his face, the way she always did, like she was reading a complex equation. Mom says you're a bad person who did good things. I think you're a good person who did bad things. Park considered that. What's the difference? Good people can change. The simplicity of it cut through 28 years of justifications and compromises. Park looked at this 13-year-old girl who'd climbed into a van to save her brother, who visited a trafficker in detention, who saw past the surface to something worth salvaging. You're wise beyond your years. You sound like my teacher. She grinned, then grew serious again. Are you still looking for Min Jun? Park glanced at his cell wall. 1 photo, 2 boys in a Seoul apartment, faces bright with the innocence of 1996. Letters from Aaliyah, carefully preserved. Newspaper clippings about trafficking rings his testimony had dismantled. 43 children recovered so far. Numbers that would never equal 1. No, he said quietly. For the first time in 28 years, I'm not searching anymore. Did you find him? No. But I'm healing anyway. Aaliyah nodded like that made perfect sense. Maybe it did. Maybe healing didn't require closure, just the choice to stop destroying yourself in the search for it. Keisha stood, visiting time ending. We'll see you next week. Park watched them leave, mother and daughter, whole and safe, walking into a future he'd almost stolen from them. His cell was small. 6 years felt long. But through the barred window, he could see sky, and in his notebooks, he was writing curriculum for next week's workshop. Prevention instead of participation. Education instead of exploitation. Sometimes the wrong number was the right call. Sometimes being saved meant choosing to fall. And sometimes a little girl's courage was enough to break a criminal empire and rebuild a broken man. Park picked up his pen and continued writing. Before you go, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what you felt during this story. Subscribe now so you don't miss tomorrow's upload. I promise it will be worth it. Thank you for being here. See you in the next story.